Wow, so David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan have been cast as Clark, Superman, and Lois Lane in Superman Legacy. James Gunn has confirmed. Sorry if I look a bit sluggish on this video. I've been up since 3 a.m. I've been up so early because of this breaking news. First of all, I want to give a very warm welcome and a huge warm congratulations to David and Rachel. We are a divided fan base. That's not on David and Rachel. If you're angry about what's happened to Zach, Henry, Ray Fisher, etc., don't take it out on David and Rachel. It absolutely has nothing to do with them. As a DC fan, I can celebrate their casting. I can be optimistic and open-minded about Superman Legacy and be disappointed of the conduct of Warner Brothers and say that James Gunn and the studio at large hasn't handled the releases of this year's movies very, very well. I can say that. But ultimately, in the end, we have to look forward and not backward. This fandom will continue to be fractured and divided. And if Superman Legacy is successful, that anger will quieten down. You won't be able to hear it. Will it still be there? Will Snyderverse fans still be throwing their hot takes? Yes, they're never going to stop. They're never going to give up on Zack Snyder's universe. But the Snyderverse, as beautiful and as amazing and as unique as I think it is, was shaving against the grain. A lot of fans, even people at Warner Brothers, even people at DC Comics were hugely offended by Zack's take on Superman. A lot of people were offended by Zack's take on Batman branding people. As I've always said, I love Man of Steel, I love BVS, and I love the Snyder Cut. But I understand why some fans, comic book writers, artists, Warner Brothers in general, were angry with what Zack did. People have every right for to their own opinions. But I'm going to celebrate the fact that David and Rachel have been cast as Superman and Lois Lane. Now, what do I think of the casting? Well, David Cornsweet actually has something in common with Christopher Reeve. He's a Juilliard graduate. So he graduated from Juilliard Art School, as did Christopher Reeve. So there's a lot of propaganda merchants on the internet. So everyone's saying he looks like Henry Cavill. No, he looks like Superman. He may even look more like Christopher Reeve than Henry Cavill. But it's a moot point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove any points. He is Superman now. He is the next Superman. I will be going to see this movie. It is your right to decide what you do in terms of the James Gunn universe. But I think Gunn has cast the correct two leads for this movie. And I'm excited by the castings. Now, I'm not going to pretend I've ever seen these two actors in anything. I've seen clips on YouTube. And what I've seen, I'm very impressed with. Now, Rachel actually is a Golden Globe and Emmy Award winner. So she's a very highly rated actor. Also, apparently, no one performed better in their screen test out of the men and the women than Rachel. That's not a surprise. She is a very, very good actor. So this is a great fit for Lois Lane. She looks like she's just walked out of the 1940s, something I really like. I do like that 1940s, 50s feel when it comes to Lois Lane. So why the rush? Why have they announced this casting so quickly? Some people may be dubious that it's, a deflection from the negative, media and news and reaction by fans of the Flash movie. Yes, I'm sure that has something to do with it. But also potentially we could be having a SAG-AFTRA Actors Union strike. What does that mean? That means they can't audition, they can't screen test, and they can't shoot a movie. So they needed this done as soon as possible. So that's the major reason James Gunn, DC Studios and Warner Brothers Discovery, but especially David Zaslav, wanted this done as soon as possible. David Zaslav was insistent from day one that the new universe they were going to launch with Warner Brothers Discovery for DC would launch with Superman, that he was the most important character, including Batman and Wonder Woman. He made that clear. He stuck to his word. Superman is a very, very important character for Warner Brothers. They're very proud of their association with Superman. And the problem with Superman is when you get him right, as they did in 78, it's beautiful, it works, it's celebratory. But when you get him wrong, there's going to be a lot of upset people. Some people believe that Snyder got Superman wrong. Some people believe that Snyder got Superman right. And that's never going to change. We can have these discussions until the end of time. But they have brought James Gunn in. He has cast his Superman and Clark. He has cast his Lois. And I like the castings. They look like Clark, Superman and Lois. That's important. There's so many different ways they could have gone with this casting. I was scared that they were going to give us a couple of inclusive castings. I think that Jimmy Olsen may be played by a black actor, and I'll just have to accept that. That's kind of the environment we live in. You know, you have to bend over somewhere in this industry today. It's disappointing, but that's the way it is. But in terms of this casting, I'm glad it's been done, because I said, if this casting wasn't the right fit, then, for example, the Snyderverse stands would have had a field day. They're finding it very, very difficult to criticize this casting of this man and this woman as Clark, Superman, and Lois, because there's nothing to criticize. They are qualified, they look great, they're going to be great. I'm very optimistic about them, and I'm optimistic about Superman Legacy. It doesn't mean that Warner Brothers' conduct, is good all of a sudden in my mind. No, I haven't changed my mind. But they were in a desperate situation. They had fucked up. They had made bad decisions from day one of the DC Extended Universe. We always knew that releasing this year's films was going to be a very difficult situation. And we probably knew that these films would mostly fail. And James Gunn and David Zaslav have done their best to promote these movies, to influence these movies into success, even sometimes lying or being economical with the truth about these films' quality. And we know the Flash movie is an inconsistent movie. Has some good moments, has some bad moments. The presentation sometimes looks great in terms of CGI, sometimes it looks bad. So it's neither a great movie, it's neither a totally bad movie, but the presentation of it is simply inconsistent and not good enough, and that's a shame. But that's from the old regime, and this is the new regime. Now James Gunn can prove to us that this actually is a new regime with some new ideas, and hopefully we get a great Superman and a great Lois. They've been cast now. We know what our Superman and Lois are going to look like. And they're very traditional looking, Clark and Lois. So that's exciting. They can act. We already know that. So they're qualified. Now, David Corenswet is 29 years old. He's around 11 years younger than Henry Cavill. Now, we were thinking maybe that this Superman would be 19, 20, 21, quite young. I don't know why we were thinking that, but we did at the time. I think it's because an issue was made about Henry Cavill's age. So, yeah, he's about 11 years younger. I mean, that is a gap. That is a gap. That's kind of when Superman first becomes Superman, around that age. Now we know this is not going to be an origin story, but I certainly expect some kind of flashback situation or something. I don't know how Gunn's going to make this movie. It's very, very interesting. And as I said on my Twitter video this morning, my advice to James Gunn, not that he needs my advice, make your damn movie. Stop looking on Twitter and social media for trends and what people think. It ultimately doesn't matter. You're the person writing and directing this movie. It's up to you, James, to make the damn movie you want to make. Finish your movie. Don't reshoot it. Don't change your mind. Fight the studio when they try and interfere with your movie. It's your movie. You're the one who's got this great record with CBMs and Peacemaker. And we know the Suicide Squad wasn't successful, but it's still a very entertaining movie. And I know some people will say his movies are bad. That's because you're angry with him because he's not Zack Snyder. And I understand your frustrations. I've felt them too. But at the end of the day, Superman Legacy at the age of 50 for me could be the final Superman movie I ever see. I hope that's not the case because I'm always hungry for more Superman. I have been spoilt throughout my life with Superman. Superman the movie, the first film I ever saw, Superman 2, Superman 3. I even get enjoyment from Superman 4. Man of Steel, BVS, the Snyder Cut, Smallville, one of my favourite versions of live action Superman. One of the greatest things in DC ever made. So I've been very, very spoiled with Superman, live action media and animated media as well, and DC in general. So I feel very, very lucky. And I'm lucky that I'm also now getting Superman Legacy. So I could be stubborn and say, no, I don't want to consume this. James Gunn's this, James Gunn's that. But I'm not going to do that. I will react to the news as I get it. If there's any more about Zack and Henry and the Snyderverse and, the campaign to restore the Snyderverse, I will always support that movement. But what I won't do is be toxic about people who, have just heard the most exciting news in the history of their careers when they have done nothing wrong. This must be the most exciting and frightening time for Rachel and David. I never thought David would get this role. I just thought he was a fan cast and they were just throwing him in there to kind of take us off the scent. But David Corenswet got the role. He clearly was the favourite. You were all telling me that, and I was in denial over it. Not because I had an issue with David, just because I thought he wouldn't get it. So clearly, this process of auditioning people for Superman, Clark and Lois has been going on a lot longer than we know about, because these things go on for a hell of a long time. They would have had hundreds of people coming in at the beginning, because this is what happens, because Superman and Lois are such iconic characters, they really do their due diligence. I think in the end, they could have cast absolutely anyone. And I'm not going to say these are the only two they could have cast because they're so perfect, because they look great. They look perfect for their roles. But yeah, anyone could have got this film. But make no mistake, they have cast two very, talented people with great CVs. So there's no one can come at them. No one can come at, these two actors. And I would never do that. No matter my arguments with WB or DC, or me frowning upon some of the things James Gunn's done and said since taking over as co-CEO of DC Studios. But as you can see, I'm a very balanced individual. Ultimately, I love the arts. I love entertainment. I love film. I love television. I love theatre. I'm an art person. I grew up in the arts world, so I love it. So I'm not here to burn it all down because WB treated Henry and Zack and Ray Fisher, etc. badly. I have spoken about these situations. You know I stand with Snyder and the Snyderverse, but I also want to see more Superman. I want to see a universe that works. Now, I've said before, I don't think it's the time for an interconnected universe. I think that Dunk has hunted really well with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and DC didn't strike while the iron was hot. So I believe it's very risky, financially to try and hit that trend now, because it surely isn't a trend. But here's the thing, it's like the conversation about superhero fatigue. There is no superhero fatigue. They said there was Western fatigue, then 20 or 30 years later they made Young Guns. Did anyone say, oh, I'm bored of Westerns? No. We watched both those movies because they were fucking great. Make great movies and there'll be no fatigue. Right now, there's creative bankruptcy fatigue, not superhero fatigue. And as I said, superhero fatigue is something journalists and, smart-ass fans have been talking about since, Iron Man, the first Iron Man launched. So it's a bullshit subject. It's a bullshit conversation, and I really don't want to get into bullshit. I want to celebrate, as a Superman fan, the fact that we finally know who's going to be playing Superman, Clark and Lois in Superman Legacy. I don't know what kind of film Superman Legacy will be, but we know it will be a movie with pre-existing heroes already in it. I assume there'll be a Hall of Justice. I assume there may even be a Watchtower. That's the kind of thing I always wanted, even when Walter Hamada was setting up a new timeline. I don't want to go down the lines of building it all up slowly like Zack was doing it, like Feige was doing it with the Avengers. That time has passed. We want a fully functioning universe. And I think it's going to be very similar to the first episode of either the Justice League animated series or the Justice League Unlimited animated series, where you see them all in the Hall of Justice, and there's loads of them, and Superman addresses the entire league. That will be amazing to get a scene like that. For those of you who are passionately opposed to James Gunn, what he's doing, what's been done, you're not going to like sometimes being on this channel, consuming this channel. Some of you may feel you want to unsubscribe and stop watching this channel. I must be true to myself. I mustn't go off on a tangent. I can't go off on a tangent and hate. I can't be your echo chamber. And I would say the same thing to the people who want DC positivity from me all the time. Again, I cannot be your echo chamber. I can only be who I am and react to the stuff that I'm seeing. But I'm not going to pretend so I can get more followers and more supporters that I'm not happy about this casting, that I'm not excited that we're finally getting another Superman movie. As I say, I believe James Gunn is a talented writer-director and he can pull off a great Superman movie. So I'm not one of these people who's going to hijack the DC Superman conversation. I'm not going to predict to you it's going to be successful. I'm not going to predict to you it's going to be a failure. Why? Because I simply don't know. And you simply don't know. I've lost count of the times where I see in my comments, it's going to fail, it's going to succeed, it's going to fail, it's going to succeed. We don't know how it's going to end up. I know James Gunn's record. Guardians successful, Guardians 2 successful, Guardians 3 successful, The Suicide Squad entertaining, Peacemaker entertaining. Yeah, you can rip apart what he does with the dancing and the shit and the comedy. You can do that. But I enjoy it, that content. He's already stated that Superman Legacy will not be a comedy. We're going to have to see another side of James Gunn as a writer-director. And that's the challenge that he's given himself. And everybody needs challenges in life. Without a challenge, we don't feel alive anymore. So James Gunn has taken this upon himself. Even though there's the historical tweets and people keep on bashing him over their head. Over them. But the point is, he stood up, he apologized, it's done. I think if it was up to some people, they'd have him in an asylum and they'd be injecting him with dirty syringes all day as punishment. He made some pretty disgusting jokes. but it's in the past. I saw some disgusting things of Snyderverse Stans cataloguing everything he's ever seen, and when you put it together, it doesn't look good. Well, sorry everyone, welcome to Hollywood. Welcome to real life. I bet you some of you have got your right hand down your trousers half the time, right? And sexualizing some poor female who doesn't even know you're doing it, right? No one's watching you. No one's criticizing you. None of us are fucking perfect, right? But what Ezra Miller is accused of is really, really serious. He's been charged for some stuff and not been charged for other things, okay? But for what he was charged with, he paid. He's paid the price. The movie he desperately wanted to be in and be successful and tried his best to make the best thing ever failed. So he's been punished. He's been charged for his crimes. And we move on. James Gunn has admitted culpability for the tweets. We move on. You don't have to. You don't have to move on. And as I say, any news I get about the Snyderverse situation or DCU or whatever, I will react to it. I will judge James Gunn's DC Universe on consumption. I will judge Superman Legacy on consumption. That's the right way to go about it. Do I think David Corenswet will be a great Clark and Superman? Yes, I do. Do I think Rachel Brosnahan will be a great Lois Lane? That H in her name is really doing me in. Anyway, yeah. Do I think Rachel will be a great Lois Lane? Yes, of course she will. She's a great actor. She really is. I mean, the clips I've seen are amazing. As I say, I don't know them deeply as actors, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But the clips I've seen are impressive. And I think we're going to get something really, really special. And I can already imagine these two having good on-screen chemistry. Now, have they been in anything together before? I'm not quite sure. I think they have. I don't know. But anyway, I think these are going to be a great fit. And they always do chemistry reads as well. These two partially got this job because they did well in the chemistry reads as well. That's always very important, especially for actors, artists playing Superman, Clark and Lois. It's a very, very special relationship. It was something very special watching Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve play, Tom Welling, Erica Durant, you know, Brandon Ralph, Kate Bosworth didn't really have the chemistry. I think that Henry Cavill and Amy Adams had it a little bit, but it wasn't totally there. But I wouldn't say they didn't have any chemistry at all. I think thus far, the best chemistry between actors playing Superman, Lois, Clark and Lois has been Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. They really did have the magic. And also, I think equally, you have to say Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher had some damn great, you know, chemistry. Great chemistry. And even though it wasn't really my cup of tea, that show, you can't deny that. So that's very important as well. But this isn't the end of the casting and audition process for Superman Legacy. Soon we should find out who's playing Lex Luthor. And I think it's going to be one of the Skarsgård brothers. It looks like it. And I mean, listen, people are talking about leaks. They're leaking this on purpose. They want you to know about this. They want to distract your mind from the Flash movie. And that's business. That's how it works. They don't want you thinking about the clusterfuck that is the Flash movie. Look, James Gunn planned all of this from the very beginning. He wanted to focus on Guardians, the release, the marketing for a month, and he did. Now he's all in DC. He isn't going anywhere anytime soon if that's what you want. If he fails in the box office, then he will fail, he will go, and it's on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. I don't know if he's going to fail. I mean, listen, I don't think failure is something that James Gunn does. I think he could have a good handle on Superman, but then again, he may not have a good handle on Superman. As I say, we won't know until we see it. So I can call him out for some of the handling of the releases of this year's movies, the teasing of the comic book panels, the confused, you know, the way he's confused audiences and stuff. that hasn't been great. But I'm not going to take it to the next level and start saying he's this, he's that, he's the other, and he's going to fail, because I don't know if he's going to fail, and I don't know if he's going to succeed or not. Neither do you. Now, I know some of you want him to succeed, and some of you passionately want him to fail. You'll find out in 2025, where we'll have 2 DC movies, at least. Superman Legacy and the Batman 2. Very, very exciting year for DC. Of course, those 2 films may be delayed if this writer's strike continues, but especially if the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union strike actually happens. So hopefully all this industrial stuff, industrial action can be sorted out so we can get back to enjoying movies somewhat. But yes, your headline today is that David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan have been cast as Superman, Clark and Lois Lane. They look like Superman, Clark and Lois Lane. I'm happy about the casting, but you are free to feel whatever you want. I, or no content creator, has any right to judge you for your opinions. This is an open house. You can say whatever you want. I want you to be respectful of each other and me as much as possible, but I'm not important. But also the actors, the directors, the people who work on these movies. Try and be as respectful as you can. And I know that the passion overheats with me as well. And sometimes we can take it too far. I do as well at times. And I feel guilty. But we're only human. And I think we know sometimes when we're wrong and when we go too far. So I would not expect anyone who consumes my content to attack David or Rachel. As I say, this is going to be the happiest moment of their lives. They wanted this. This is why they auditioned for these roles. It's very, very exciting. Women want to play this impactful, empowered female character, Lois Lane. And, young men want to play Superman because he's the greatest character in fiction, in my opinion. He's pure-hearted. He's complex. He has a dual identity. He has these superpowers. He's a hero. And everyone has an opinion on Superman, even if you love him or you don't. And everyone right now is going to have an opinion about this casting. The whole world is going to be talking about this casting because it's Superman. And he matters. He's the most famous superhero, the most famous character in fiction, bar none. And everyone cares what the next step for him is. The next step for him is, surprisingly, is James Gunn, David Corenswet, and Rachel Brosnahan. And they get to anchor the next chapter in Superman live action history. And for me, that's very exciting because I can put things in departments. I can talk about the stuff with Snyder and how it was so bad. I don't think anyone conducted themselves well in that situation. Zack wouldn't compromise at all, and he was difficult to work with. Then the studio went down a road that they shouldn't be proud of. And I think everyone acted in a way, when they think about it now, maybe we shouldn't. I still think Warner Brothers Pictures as a studio despise Zack Snyder. And that's sad. And that bad feeling's a shame. But it is a dark time in Warner Brothers history and what they did to Zack and the way they conducted themselves. But also, Zack Snyder made 3 movies, as I said earlier, that went against the grain. And a lot of people were upset about them. Why? Because everyone has a view how Superman and Batman should be. Even Batman, even though he's viewed as a darker, grittier character, a lot of people don't see him that way. Especially, people who consume the Batman comics. And Superman has always been this bright, inspirational, impactful character. So when you go down a more broodier direction, people are going to get upset. Snyder has always, shaved against the grain. And the reaction was amazing. It was amazing to see some people love it and some people hate it. But the depth of love and hatred people have for Snyder's vision will never be forgotten. It was an interesting time, but we're going to move forward by hook or by crook, whether you like it or not, because Superman Legacy is coming.